down, so restaurants can only be open till 10 because people get more and more drunk later in the evening, and a lot of particularly the public businesses, they have closed down, and the parliament, people who are the administrative, they work from home. A lot of people work from home, but otherwise you can go where you want. But now, which is new in Denmark, we have to wear masks when we are in sort of public, and that's new. Not when you walk in the street, but when you go into
inside somewhere.
And stuff, yeah.
But I think it helps,
We hope.
The masks. It's the minimum we can do in a way, So.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. So weird, but it's sort of Russian roulette, the whole thing.
So
right?
this is the moment where I'm doing like in an orchestra. Chan 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 chan. No, not yet. This is the beginning. It's like tuk tuk tuk, the orchestra, and then you are like with the instruments. Probably the audience is already there. Hello, wonderful audience, ladies and gentlemen, professionals, colleagues. I am your host for this afternoon, Alex Navarro from Media Desk Catalunya, and my great colleagues responsible for this session asked me to moderate this roundtable this afternoon. So welcome to my colleagues, Andrea Coluccia from Media Desk Bari. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, everyone.
And of course, Susana Costa Pereira from Media Desk Portugal. Thanks for trusting me, Susana. Good afternoon. Ine Rasmussen from Media Denmark. Hello, Ine.
Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. Wish I was there with you.
Thank you. And of course, the Media Basque Country, because don't forget, this is happening in the frame on the San Sebastián Film Festival. Good afternoon, Ainhoa González. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hello, everyone.
So if you decide to choose this roundtable among all the activities, professional activities within the framework of the San Sebastián Film Festival, you choose right. This is about the building documentary audiences beyond Europe and more. So in order to do that, let me introduce you the cast. We get incredible cast, 4 people, 2 men, 2 women, from different perspectives, but in the same galaxy. First of all, from Mexico, Inti Cordera. Buenas tardes, welcome. How are you, Inti?
Very, very good. Happy to join this panel and meet you and all my colleagues from other countries, and be happy to be part of the San Sebastián International Film Festival, but missing not to be there, having some really good pinchos.
And good food. And thank you for being with us. Next one, and Diana Tabakov from Doc Alliance. Welcome. Hello, Diana.
Hello, Alex. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I believe you're in Prague, isn't it?
Yes, I'm in Prague now.
And move on. The third participant, Miguel Ribeiro, Docs Lisbon. Hello.
Hi, hello from Lisbon. Happy to be here. Great to see you all.
And Mette Hoffman-Meyer from the Y Foundation. Hello, Mette.
Hello, I wish I was in San Sebastian. It's a wonderful place, and the water is good too. It's a good swimming place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Actually, it's one of the pearls for us in Spain. And now we start. We move forward. I give you just 90 seconds, 2 minutes to each one of the 4 of you to introduce your initiative. You know, the pitching elevator a little bit more in order to get to know what do every one of the organizations. And oops, we kindly ask you to anyone having mobiles or phones to switch off, please. Yes, thank you. And Inti, tell us, 2 minutes, what does Docs in Mexico?
2 minutes. Almost 15 years now, DocsMX was founded in Mexico City as a conventional, let's say, documentary film festival. Through this more than a decade and a half, we have also built like a platform based on 3 basic lines of action: exhibition, training, and creation. these are the main routes that we follow every year to give audience for Mexico City and other states of Mexico. We have created a network of independent venues around the country. Last year were more than 120 different venues in Mexico, giving them the opportunity to enjoy the selection of and around of 100 documentaries, from long feature to shorts. Also, we have strengthened our training program. Docs Lab joins 4 different workshops, from development to work in progress. And also, one pearl of the festival is the challenge. Every year, we challenge young filmmakers to shoot, edit, and finish a short film, not more than 10 minutes, in a lapse of 100 hours. So DocsMX is the International Documentary Film Festival of Mexico. It's not only city, it's a national and permanent platform for documentary film. So happy to join again this panel and meet Diana and Miguel and Mete and all of you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for the intro, Inti. Mete, it's your time. The Why Foundation. Go ahead. 90 seconds, 2 minutes.
Sorry?
Yeah, the Why Foundation. You have 90 seconds, 2 minutes to introduce your...
So the Why, what we do is we do global public information, and we empower people with knowledge about own rights. So we basically share films and stories about human rights, and obviously now they're all related to the global goals. So so we have a list of films that relates to each of the goals. So the background, very briefly, is that 4 billion people speak only their one local language. 3.6 billion have no access to internet. 1,890,000 cannot read and write. And we believe if we want to reach the global goals and the better lives and better world, you need to inform and have a dialogue and show stories to the most fragile in the world, the other half, you can call them. And we do that with 4 programs. One is or 2 programs. We buy and curate 20 documentaries per year, films that are already made, that we cut and update. We cut them to 45 minutes so they fit into educational purposes, but also we donate them to TV stations in poor countries or countries where they're not used to have free media and independent media. And then BBC World News buy 20 films of us per year. And then every 2 or 3 years we do a theme, like we did in 18 why slavery, 6 new produced films about modern day slavery. We did why women, we did why poverty, as I think there was shown in most places, and why democracy. And we have 4 platforms. BBC World News, you reach 40% of the world's decision makers, which we think is really important, particularly decision makers in countries where they don't have their own reliable newsfeed. Then we donate the films to countries, developing countries, or countries where such a thing as documentaries is new. And we now have our films out on 74 TV stations in outside Europe, you can say. And then we work with some 50 organizations who uses our films in schools or villages and show the films in squares or whatever. And then the last thing is our YouTube channel that we haven't done much with, but obviously it's important. So the last year we have edited it a bit, and we just got a YouTube award for 100,000 subscribers and 11 million views. And global audience. Was it more than 90 seconds?
Yeah, but the audience like it. And Miguel, please go ahead with Docs Lisbon.
So Doc Lisboa is now going to its 18th edition. It started in 2002 and usually happens in October, screening around 300 films during 11 days in different venues of the city of Lisbon. This year it will be a bit different. As a response to the situation, we decided to divide the festival into 6 moments of programming. So the festival will be divided from October, well, divided but always united, but it will be spread across 6 months of programming, 1 week per month. And also last year we launched the Nebula, which is our industry space aiming at fostering production and encounters. This year it will be happening online from the 22nd of October until the 1st of November. So I send a wide invitation to anyone who wishes to join Nebula this year. The accreditation process is already open. Doc Lisboa is organized by Apordoc, which is the Portuguese Documentary Association, with many activities regarding exhibition of documentary cinema in Portugal, both nationally and Portuguese cinema abroad. A strong educational project with a very diverse set of activities. And in 2012, already passing the word in a way, in 2012, Doc Lisboa joined Doc Alliance together with 6 other festivals. And the conversation goes on. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. That's why I keep Diana for the last, because it's Doc Alliance, which one of the participants is Doc Lisbon. That's why I keep you for Diana. Go ahead, please.
I was wondering why you kept me for the end. Now I understand.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much. So Doc Alliance Films, the shortcut of our domain is dafilms.com. We are a VOD platform that has launched 15 years ago, which is the time when YouTube started working and when Netflix went online. And at this point, a couple of film festivals decided to put films that are festival films also online. So it's a large tradition, and it's a long living VOD platform to represent documentary films. We are based and powered by film festivals, mainly the Doc Alliance, which is a network of 7 film festivals. Doc Lisboa is among them, but also it's FID Marseille, Doc Leipzig, CPH Docs in Copenhagen, it's Jihlava in Czech Republic, it's Millennium Docs Against Gravity in Warsaw, and it's Visual in Lyon. So it's spread out throughout Europe. These festivals are our friends, and together we reach out and discover new films for audiences not only in Europe but also in all over the world. We've launched a website that is specifically graphically made for Americas, and we're launching one for Asia. And we're also translating our websites locally for local markets in Poland, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, and we're planning a German version. So we're working also globally, but also working locally with audiences, but also mainly with the aim to promote the documentary genre, to promote the documentary filmmakers, and to work with authors and somehow create a brand of our platform in order to work as a creator for people to find also films that could be sometimes fragile and not that easy to market. So probably we'll talk about some of these topics a bit later, but dafilms.com, you can just check it out now and watch films straight away.
Thank you, Diana. So instructions for our audience. We have in front of us 45-50 minutes ahead. So the questions are, if you think are suitable, you can write and we will receive the questions. And at the end, we keep like 10-12 minutes for our panel to answer your questions. So, but now it's time for our storytelling. I will put you here in the center, a subject, and then whoever wants to open and jump it, you are free to do it. It's all about how, that's my question. How platforms and festivals are going to coexist, how they are going to work complementary. in a global market. But there is a tricky. A piece of audiovisual needs context, cannot be jumped immediately into a platform. It means I am a young filmmaker and I want to pay the bill and I do an art house movie, really cheapy, and I'm lucky to sell it to Netflix. I pay the bills, but nobody knows. There is no context. That's what I understand for that. The context is about mouth to mouth, to build in a context of a festival or whatever, that kind of a building act that make the documentary to travel, to open different markets and to change the mind. That's my point. How they're gonna coexist? Feel free.
Well, maybe I can start because we have been in touch since the beginning of this year with film festivals as a VOD platform approached with film festivals, and have also always cooperated with film festivals and curated specific programs for the online global audiences. So our platform has always worked as an international partner for festivals to actually promote their films and the program to international audiences. Now it has changed that film festivals are in a mode of crisis, of course, that they need to somehow digitally release often their festivals or find another way of how to supplement or how to substitute the missing offline screenings. But I think it's a very interesting time now after this 6 months of crisis, where a lot of film festivals learned that the online space can actually be a way where to create specific programs. Like, for example, with we have something that is specifically also created for the online space. So it's about learning with which kind of programs we are trying to approach audiences online. Also, each film, there is no one mechanism we can think of that we can apply for each film. I think everyone knows this. So it's about searching for it. Also, each film is awaiting different kind of premiere life, and someone is just more open to experimenting. From our experience in one territory, it's always good to give out the film through as many distribution channels as you can, because you don't have the budget too many times to promote the film again. So we very much work with day and date releases, online premieres, with Prime VOD models, with just streaming for 48 hours, then going offline and making a screening and so on. So these are very interesting models of how we can creatively work with the program that festivals actually curate. And what I would like to say is that also VOD platforms can be very important partners for film festivals, because we're data companies as well. We understand a lot more about the audiences than the festival can actually do, because we check the Google Analytics and the administrative systems of who watches us, when they watch us, how old the people are, how they liked this kind of program, did they watch it during lunch or during dinner. And it's very interesting to see how these wave changes during the lockdown, after the lockdown, during film festivals, after film festivals. And this partnership with film festivals, I think VOD platforms can really give an insight of how to approach audiences and how to see which film actually worked in a specific time and a narrative. But I do understand that we cannot just take a film and put it out into the world without any kind of narrative. And we did one last note about this. We did invest in the previous 1 or 2 years quite a serious amount of budget into digital marketing campaigns, and we did realize that in the end, the largest amount of people who paid for our content and who actually buy some subscriptions or films were the ones who came through our newsletter and our social networks. The place where we put the films into a narrative that we understand, somehow the story that we create, and that's where the space, where the films can find a meaning in a context, because no one really knows about them in a specific territory, specifically when you're reaching out to global audiences. So we need to, I do
What's the question? I'm just curious, wasn't the question how you complement, because we can talk now, festivals are streaming their films, But
Yeah.
obviously, a lot of the streaming companies like Netflix and other, they want exclusivity. So, you know, you would have.
Oh, thank you, because that's one of my magical words that I take note. Exclusivity. Go ahead, Mete. Yeah. Go the direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious because you know, I talked a lot and I work a lot with Copenhagen Docs, and obviously they had quite a lot of viewers online this year, and particularly from Jutland and other parts of Denmark than Copenhagen, but missed out on a lot of, of course, the live thing. But I was just thinking, because I've been attending, as many of you know, and been juries and so festivals for so many years, and it, you know, festivals want exclusivity, first run. I mean, ITFA, Sundance, they all want first run, and that was when it was in cinemas. And now, where most of them rely on online screenings, a festival online screening, I don't know how they're going to handle it. Of course, you can geo-block and you can do things, but still, it's a different experience. And then you have the whole competition with Netflix now, you know, Amazon, Hula, and all these who wants basically exclusivity. I know Hula is only in America, but still, I think also down to Mexico. I'm not sure, but somebody like Netflix, they want exclusivity, and I cannot see how this is going to complement each other, because they are not in it. You know, I know that a lot of filmmakers are reluctant now, unless they get, you know, these $5 million for their film, to sell to Netflix, because you talk about, you bury your films on streaming services because there's so much of it and there's so many films, and they don't, as you say, they don't get promoted in the narrative around the promotion is not often extraordinary, except if they are nominated for something, an Oscar or something, then Netflix and these streaming services do something for them. But I just find it very difficult. I don't have any solution, but I just cannot see how, if festivals go more and more digital, each of our small wonderful festivals where we used to go there and we get an idea of the culture in the country and what films they like and the storytelling and so, and then where everything is just digital, and I'm not sure it's a nice route to take.
Of course not. I believe that the online releasing is a crisis mode. I mean, no one is saying that digital releasing film festivals is something someone wishes. I think it's just a way of how to cope with the situation. And the exclusivity with Netflix was a problem even before Corona. So that's, I think, a good question.
Ladies, allow the gentleman. You have something to say, please, because I saw maybe your hand, Inti. Yeah. Microphone.
Sorry. I was going back in time a little bit, no? When in 2006, Docs, the festival was born. I mean, there were very few like venues or even festivals in Mexico City focusing on documentary film. No, so we, along others, started like to open the possibility of bringing people to watch only documentaries. No, in these 15 years, I mean, we have seen how the audience has grown exponentially. No, I mean, from the 6,000 spectators or audience in 2006, last year we accomplished almost 100,000 people watching, even on presential activities, or also we started to jump into some kind of channels of the festival to show short films that were produced in the challenge. So the thing is, and trying to answer your question, Alex, is how festivals and platforms will coexist. I mean, we are now forced to coexist. I mean, we are being forced and inspired in projects and examples as DA films. No, we found that there was no time to, I mean, the only chance to survive was to jump very fast into the digital world, no? And I'm not afraid about now competing with the offer of Netflix, no, because Netflix will never show the documentaries that are programmed in Docs MX or in CPH Docs or in Doc Lisboa. And the frustration of thousands of or hundreds of documentary filmmakers to go into the screens of Netflix or Amazon Prime. I mean, now we are opening a more wide offer of documentary films to be seen. And for example, what we are expecting now is like, now we have the possibility to show and to share our program to all the country, no? This is not what we really wish to be. I mean, we love to have the screenings in a venue and having the Q&As with audience. Before jumping into this session, I was pre-recording a Q&A session with a filmmaker in Tijuana, no? So, because he won't be able to come, but we are like imagining how to create this new, I don't know to say, normality, reality, future, no? And these tools Diana was mentioning, no? This data that we can bring and to help us to understand better our audience, the kind of films that they have, no? Are like putting in the table like these new tools that will strengthen our work to promote documentary films and also to connect, because I found, and I will finish my, I will find every year people asking me or telling me, oh, I missed that film. Where can I see it? Oof. Or a long time ago, trying to answer to that question, we opened the festival's film library, all the year open for people who wanted to see films they missed. But now we have this opportunity in a new platform to give them the opportunity to watch not all the films, but from time to time, refresh our catalog and having not this platform not only for the festival, but for like a permanent platform. So I find more opportunities from these challenges that the pandemic is inheriting us.
Yes, can I go?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to invite you. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I think that this idea of the coexistence is again something that is not new. I mean, the platforms have been out there before the pandemic. Now it's much more visible and much more needed to see how these things can work together. And I think that, like every time, like I strongly believe in the transformative power of cinema through a collective act, and by being together in a room and discussing and being all together. However, what I also think is that this time allows us to really pay attention to what are the potentialities of these platforms, and in what way we can find very interesting coexisting activities. Because of course, many films require a context and require something that festivals can do in a much more feasible way than you can do online, you know, like by presentations, inviting filmmakers, round tables, that you can do it online, but it's not so obvious that it's completely linked from the spectator and when you are watching the platform. However, what it allows you is physical screenings require space and time in a way that sometimes the online doesn't allow. And online, you can do, for example, complementary programs like this further context in a way that sometimes allows you to have an even broader discussion and space for debate that you wouldn't have like at all times in a film festival for lack of enough venues. We are already showing lots of films, and sometimes don't have space like to do all this kind of complementary. And also, I also think that now we are talking about all this geo-blocking, which is very important to secure the ecosystem of films and contemporary films more than anything. But it's also important to think that even when we are geo-blocking to a country, and I'm talking from a country that is very small, Portugal has 10 million inhabitants in a very small area. And I also think that even there, it's important that we don't feel like this work is done of bringing these films to other cities and other territories by enabling them online, because the same context many times is required when we are showing these films outside of Lisbon in this case, or wherever the festival is happening. And this is something that, for example, Doc Lisboa has been working before for a long time through the extensions of the festival by going to venues and doing screenings there with the same level of implication and context, and bringing a programmer that promotes a debate, gathering schools, and connecting this with an educational project that can really foster a long time participation from audiences from these places.
So I took notes, but I would like to give you a twist and move forward, because if we are building the audience of the future beyond, and we have to have a kind of a complementary between festivals and platforms, how are going to be the strategies to tackle those audiences? No matter what, we have to educate the future audience right now. So media literacy, it's quite important. But the festival somehow are the curators of, look this new player, look this new author, look this new issue. What do you think about how we can educate those future audiences? By asking them to go to the festivals, by putting them in front of platforms specialized, like the wonderful project of Doc Alliance or any other platform. Which is the best way? Because, and excuse me, the romantic question is, in the education for film is included the changing of perspective of subject for the new generations regarding sustainability, climate change, gender, immigration. So documentary, other than animation or fiction, educates in how the future society we're going to have. You see my point? It's very romantic, but it's a full package. It's not only do a curator work, it's how you can build that future audience. Sorry, I've been long. I will be trying to be short. Go ahead, whoever.
Oh, Miguel.
Go.
No, I was thinking, I mean, every festival, I mean, is shaped in its character by its program, no? I mean, the program of Docs MX is different in somehow to Doc Lisboa or to Doc Leipzig or to Doc Barcelona. So in first, we like in this way you mentioned educating. We are educating a community around our festivals and around the films that we present. No, the main thing I feel and I think of is how we can help connecting our audience. I mean, to all these, you mentioned, Alex, all these young, not only filmmakers, but audiences, these digital natives, that are more aware on all the changes around technology. And also, I feel like our commitment to present documentary film is itself a call to action. All the films that are done everywhere, I mean, about migration, about human rights, about the empowerment of women, about are the films that we need, And so in this time, we must be more conscious on our compromise as festivals are becoming media. No, when I say media is not only the time that the festival takes place, but all the work that the festival does permanently as the site of DA. No, I mean, you can go there and watch films presented by all the network of the festivals that are part of these networks. So I feel like this connecting audiences to the topics, no, and now this chance. I mean, if you finish to watch the film and then you can find another window and you can say, how can I connect with? I mean, and you can find all the websites of these all allies of the film, no. So yes. I mean, I feel it's like a compromise now more than ever, the work that we can shape.
Who else? Mete? Yeah, I was thinking of you.
Well, I think there's super many challenges in our landscape now, and obviously there's, hopefully we'll get back to sort of normal festival physical screenings again. And of course, geo-blocked is vital. I disagree that all documentaries are kind of we have a commitment just to show documentaries, because if you look at Netflix, which is my favorite to score, is that they actually get money to show films with vested interest, whether it is about vegan or other kind of ideological opinions. So they have lots of paid content that's not like what we think of as a documentary. So I think we have to be careful just to say all documentaries are good. In terms of the new audiences, you can say, or the young people, how do we educate critical access to media, and obviously a lot of people's commitment to tell about the world as it is, and to try and use it as an educational tool, knowledge sharing. It's difficult. We have a pilot project we've had for 4 years where we show films to schools, kids between 14 and 16, I guess. And our impact reports, which is super interesting, is that at the children and the teachers, but the children, they do less harassment of other children. They have much bigger understanding of children from other parts of the world, refugees and immigrants. And also they talk about the films, and this is 45 minutes films. They talk about the films for months after, when they have subjects in school. They bring up, oh, you remember this film where the girls couldn't go to school because there was no toilets, or whatever it could be of the films we make. So I think there is a really big educational challenge where we actually include, you can say trustworthy, I don't know how to call it, but great documentary stories into the curriculum of schools in Europe. I think that would be extraordinary if it was part of education. We do it now the 4th year in Denmark, and there's, it's just sold out every time we announce it. The cinemas are full, and the teachers are very happy about it. So that's a project we would like to expand into Europe. And we do that also in some countries in Africa. Nigeria, we have had a huge sort of outreach in schools, and of course we work with Futura in Brazil, but a lot of other places, and it's sort of the formative age, 14 to 16, 17, where they start thinking about the world, and the world becomes smaller and bigger at the same time. So I think there's a huge challenge for us, and it's very important for the media, I think, also to actually make effective, but also calls where it's where it's not so complicated to get money if you can show films to school kids. It's super vital, I think, and it is creating the future audiences for festivals, but also, of course, for public service TV, who has a lot of documentaries on their screens as well. So there's big challenge there, I think.
Yeah, and I would add just that I completely agree that this work with school children is fundamental, but also the work that is done with the teachers, because I think that it's so that the films can be further used. It's very important to also do this kind of actions with teachers and giving tools on how to connect some of these films with even the school programs. We do these year-long activities with teachers also about like how to use cinema in school context. And also I think that one of the major aspects, more than changing the world, or I mean, this is changing the world, but I think that more than giving direct answers, what is interesting with documentary cinema is that gives us, and by seeing it together as in schools, is that it gives us the tools for reflective thinking and for critical thinking and for broadening possibilities and other points of views, because this is also a strength that you can see a lot in documentary cinema, which is someone going and thinking about their own context or other context, and how do they position themselves in there, and all these kind of issues is actually what I think that can be the strengths. It's really to think of other possibilities and other ways of seeing the world, and it's through that line that we try to work with school children and educators alike.
We have a lot of experiences also with this, but I mean, with of course as distributors, I think film literacy is a part of the job. And I think that it is quite difficult to get to the schools in some countries of Europe. I believe that it could be different in different countries. We also had a project called DocAlliance Academy in previous years, but we stopped doing this because it was very difficult for us to create the same methodology to teach a film in Poland and in Switzerland and in France, because the levels of education are so different. So it is also very interesting how we learned how to think locally about the educational programs. And I think you all said everything, I think, but I just would like to add to Miguel that it's interesting also there are other soft skills that one can develop from film literacy, and I think it's very important also to think about the practical part of creation, because I think we all mainly work with author films. With schools, it's very difficult to get there with very author films, so you usually get there through topics, so it's not that much of film literacy as a media literacy or human rights activist films. So sometimes it's difficult to really have a film literacy program there. And so it's very interesting also to think of like practical workshops with students, because there they become the authors, and we are thinking about how do we create and how we become an author, how we have an opinion and how do we voice it. So that's another just perspective and practical.
So it brings to another question. It's under COVID, creators of documentary are less on the front row to be there with the pandemic. It means that creatively the rules of the game change as well. So the next question is, what would make a documentary of the future really innovative, that stands out, to be selected for a festival and then to be promoted worldwide from Europe internationally through platforms? What would make a documentary unique? New narratives, new ways to explain the stories, to tackle, as you mentioned, local stories into global stories, trying to reach bigger markets, let's say not commercially like Netflix, but you know what I mean. Which is the way? What would be interesting for a young documentalist, documentary professional, to put on the spectrum? The floor is yours. Mette, go ahead.
Yeah, we do a 3-part series on the plastic and climate now in the process. And unfortunately, one of our directors got COVID-19 in April, 45, very healthy, non-smoker. She still cannot walk nearly 100 meters. But I think in terms of the new films, it's not new, because we already did these films. So Burma VJ was a Danish-Norwegian team, and the whole thing was filmed by local filmmakers in now called Myanmar. It was a big festival film about the monks there and stuff, and in a way also the last men, what's it called, in Aleppo, it was also filmed by local people, and the footage was gathered, and there was a film made by that. And I remember like 30 years ago, we did films the same way. We had local filmmakers in Albania where you couldn't get in with BBC and DR, Danish TV's people. And they filmed, and you kind of saw the footage with them and say, can you film a little bit more with the uncle? So it's not new, but obviously there's a need now to be able to, as we in the Y have done always, and steps was called, work with local filmmakers. It has some challenges because obviously if you do very big critical journalistic stories, you have to be able to, as a director, as a producer, to do the producer's declarations. How did you get access? Why do what did you tell? What was the deal with the children in the mine? Did you get permission by the parents? No, because they were slaves. So all these things, which is of course more difficult to control if you work with local filmmakers all over the world, but it's possible, and I've done it many times. It's time consuming, and people think it's more cheap, but it is actually more expensive, also in the editing. But I think you will find ways to tell stories that way by working with local filmmakers and edit together and all these things. It's possible. If that was your question.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's not I think that it doesn't bring necessarily a huge change on the act of creating. It gives a wider change on what can be depicted. Because if we talk about independent filmmakers have been working for a long time around their context, their own context. And if they go somewhere, they might do something out there. But if they are in some place, they will still be doing films where they are. So I think that from the point of view of independent filmmakers, this doesn't change that much. What it might change, but that might actually be a very interesting challenge, is that if producers want to have stories from underdeveloped countries, places that are not so on the center of the map, with not so amazing structures for production, maybe there will be needed investment in local filmmakers and technical teams, local production structures, and this is the huge challenge. But I think that this can actually, but people will still want to see content based on territories that now are not so easy to access. And so I think that this might even give some important impulse to some production strategies. I don't know, I'm curious to see.
Inti?
Yes, thank you. I first think that documentary is already a fertile soil. We have seen year after year how the narrative of documentary film have changed very fastly. We have seen incorporated animation tools and also new ways to present the narrative of the film. But now, thinking on one of the topics of this panel, this round table, is thinking about beyond Europe. No, I'm thinking that in our region, in Latin America, while we are facing the pandemic, we are also facing. We are in the edge of democracy, as Petra Costa's film. No, the right parties are taking over many governments in the country, and this is where also documentary filmmakers must be aware and must feel and define their role. No, I think also we have to face with creativity the financing of the films. We must strengthen our relation with non-government organizations, with foundations as I can imagine, why can provide tools to make. I mean, I am thinking, no, like to strengthen the way documentaries can help audiences to understand the world. No, the public, the media is making. I mean, the information that we get through media, through private or public media, is also touched by interest, no? And documentary is
yeah, I just want to say, one thing. I disagree on that for most public media in at least in Northern Europe and other places. But I think they are really trying to inform the people without vested interest. But because you mentioned, the funders and other forms of funding, if you talk about vested interest, most of the big funders, MacArthur, Ford Foundation, all these foundations, they have a vested interest. You go there and they want a specific turnout of the story. And they it's really very political in their way of looking at what's a good story and what the subjects and topics should be about. So I think that it's not like, you have to be careful wherever you go and watch your.
We are very careful. No,
I know you are. I'm just saying that the young filmmakers, they have to be really aware of.
I was basically thinking how. I mean, the documentary in Mexico or in Latin America has now somehow strained the relation. I mean, and I'm not meaning to be founded by Open Society or MacArthur's but which are in fact some way for some people to finance film. No, but I'm thinking in the base of the social organization. No, I mean there are how to say. I mean there are people disappearing in Mexico, 60,000 people disappearing. I mean, this is where I wish to place our work, no, in working together and hand by hand with this organization from social society, from the society to make impact. No, we are now working along with Doc Society in hosting the first Good Pitch in Mexico. And the 5 films that are being brought to this program are putting in the screens and the watch of the people these problematics that we need to face. No, so that's where I was basically trying to bring the conversation.
Anyone else? No. So we have almost 10 minutes more to finish, and I would try to wrap up kind of if you want a final question regarding things you mentioned, and this is addressed to the 4 of you, but probably to Diana. It's how do you think platforms should be more transparent, sharing as Doc Alliance the very quite importance of the data of what's happening in the platforms, because usually festivals that are curators, they're working so hard to discover, to enhance a good program, then they probably get fed by the platform. If the platform is sharing the data, bravo. But some platforms are not sharing the data. It means that I cannot know in which minute people are leaving, watching, how many people, at what time, when they're stopping, which is when is the part of the documentary that they're reaching the peak of, like the highlights of the project. So what do you think about how to share in a transparent way that data? Because it's going to help us, and that's my twist. It's going to help all the value chain of producers, script writers, creators, young professionals, and then sales agents and distributors and festivals to know better what the audience is looking for. That's the thing. You can start. It's for you, Diana, but anyone else is invited.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually the point I was touching at the beginning, so it's good we're getting back to it. And it is, of course, important to ask. I mean, that it's simple as that.
Because we are building the future audience. That's why I'm asking. We need to know that more.
Learn about the audience, and of course, it's not that you know everything. We're not that much interested at what point the audience stops watching the film, because when they go to a cinema, we don't know when the person leaves either. But of course, this could be something for us. It's very much measuring like which of the promotional campaigns worked. What is it? Where should we invest into? Where should we find new audiences? Who are the ones who stay with us? Who are the new ones? Did we reach out to new audiences that stayed? Was this a sustainable campaign? Are we using good words? Which pictures are working and which are not, and how are we communicating this, and so on and so on. So these are all things that we can help measure together with festivals. And it's always, it's interesting because not even producers really ask us that much about reports. So I think whenever a festival partners with a VOD, it's very important for the festival to say in advance, okay, so after this cooperation, we would like to know this and that and this and that. Is it possible? And the VOD platform will let you know, because of course there's some GDPR and there's some regulations. None of the VOD platforms like to say the amount of subscribers. That's because of the pressure. Otherwise, we would, but it's a strong pressure on VOD platforms now. So, but it's about asking what is it that and if it's a VOD platform that is also more independent or is funded, I presume that it is actually one of our aims as well. I mean, we're funded by funds. We're supposed to share information because we use the money of the taxpayers for this. So I think that's something that we should think of as VOD platforms as well.
Maybe it's also because if you are really transparent, I would think for most, if you listen to the numbers that, I follow quite a lot from festivals, you sort of hear there's 100,000, there's 130,000 online or whatever. But if they have 200 films, I would think for the individual filmmakers, it would be a quite depressing number, because I think that it's probably very few, just like it was in the cinemas, you would have maybe 1,000 people in a festival, but if you accumulate it, it's quite a lot, I guess. But I mean, it's true when you go on YouTube, and so you can get all the numbers. I know exactly we have 25% of the audiences are between 25 and 35, and we have 15% are between 15 and 25, and so forth. We can see all ages. We have 52% women, and blah blah blah, and then it must be 48 men. So you can see all these things in the countries. We can see that some of our films about trafficking of women in the Middle East are seen by 90,000 in Saudi Arabia and 160,000 in the Emirates, which is super cool, we think. And now we're going to do an Arabic because we have 80 film in Arabic, so we are going to do channels in language YouTube channels, which we expect a lot from. But the thing about transparency, the only one who has been transparent that I know of is actually, again, public service TV stations. They tell you how many watch your film Monday night at 10 or something, and obviously they have to, because it's a public TV station. But I don't think that, I don't think there's a super interest in all this transparency for most people in our business. And I don't know why, but obviously we know that Netflix and others are not giving any numbers out. In terms of funding for this new platform, my fear is that we all have our own online platforms, and then all of them are seen by very few. That we can say Netflix are big and we would like to be as big as Netflix only with documentary, but should we pull it all together or shouldn't we? I don't know, but I think, yeah.
Working
but I don't know how we are doing this in the right way, and where the filmmakers and the story we tell would benefit from it, because in the end, that's the most important. How do we reach Mrs. Smith in Texas, who's homeschooling her kids and never read newspapers, only see Fox? How do we actually reach these people? Because the people attending and watching our stuff, I mean, they would do it anyway, but how do we reach the other people we disagree with, people who have other opinions? How do we reach them? And I think it's very important to reach young age, school kids with
exactly, and that is where I don't think that VOD platforms are the solution alone, because I really think that it's fundamental to work with the local communities, and this has to be in person. This has to be in a room. It has to be with a discussion, and it has to be engaging schools, ONGs, associations, and it's this kind of people that if we are not from there, we won't know the audience there. So if we want to do something out of the place where we are developing our activities, it has always to have the engagement of the people who are there. And that's why I can see the complement, but I cannot see a substitution, because otherwise it just becomes hermetic and it becomes only for those that are already engaged. And we can get to more people that are already converted, but we will not convert anyone via online. I think that all this work has to be done with local agents, and doing it collectively, it's the only way.
Finally, since there is no questions in our channel, I would wrap up with asking you if you agree with the following affirmation. You think that we should go from monogamy into polygamy, like more collaboration, sharing, like Meta said, not having a lot of platforms with a very few viewers, and monogamy going more into sharing collaboration with festivals and platforms in order to get a stronger base. Monogamy versus polygamy. You agree? Yes, no, and
well,
I think we should do both.
Both.
Yes.
I think it's whatever suits it.
I think what's most important, and that's also from all the funding system, is consistency. So not these sort of moody calls that goes up and down, because we now have around 100 million people watching each of the Y films around the world, and obviously our YouTube is coming up, but it's just a little part of it. But it's this thing about year after year to try and get the films out. It takes 3 years, and now we have a screening in southern Egypt, or screenings, and it's just the consistency of funding, which EU could be really helpful with when there are good, solid, effective projects. That would be a huge, major help, and it would ensure, it would ensure that we could include many more people in the documentary world with free, independent thoughts and stories. I would hope for that in the calls that there. And the thing about collaboration, it can also be extremely time-consuming, and that it sort of fades out in weird ways. But I just hope that consistency in funding would be better.
Okay, let's say a consistent monogamy. No, thank you so much. This is we reached the end. I hope the audience enjoyed the content. We tackle a lot of concepts all together. Don't forget that this session will be available in the channel for the time being. And it's time to thank you for the 4 panelists this afternoon. Susanna, you have a question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead,
much,
please.
Alex. I'm sorry. I wrote it, but
ladies and gentlemen, for all of you, Susanna from Portugal.
Thank you, Alex.
Go ahead.
There is just a quick question to Diana, please. You said that you always you produce a lot of information that you supposed to share. That information, do you share it beyond the members of Doc Alliance?
Yeah, well, we share with the ones that are, it's usually with the rights holders. So the ones who hold the rights to the films. And then to our partners, who are mainly festivals or film institutions with whom we curate programs. So then together, of course, we share. It's not that we would publicly share them on a website or on the social networks, but with our partners, we share this information because, of course, they invest their energy, and we collaborate on approaching new audiences together. So we show these numbers as requested.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susanna. So we reached the end. I hope was profitable for you. It's going to be available, as I said, in the channel. And it's time to thank the 4 members of the panel. Mete, thank you for being with us this afternoon. And Inti, Miguel, and Diana as well, from different points, even from Mexico. I hope that next time we can meet in person. And this is session, ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, it's been brought thanks to the collaboration of the 4 media desks in Europe. It means that it's time for the credits. Ine Rasmussen from Denmark, Ainhoa Gonzalez, hi Ine, Ainhoa Gonzalez from Basque Country, and Andrea Coluccia from Bari, and Susana Costa Pereira from Portugal. So thanks for being with us. See us around, and don't forget to check the next activities within the framework of the professional corner of the San Sebastián Film Festival. Thank you, and see you around. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.